Many say AI is the future, an industry worth trillions of dollars. But others say it's a bubble, and they're pointing to the circular nature of many of its transactions as proof. I'm Grant, and this is Phrasal Verb News, the show where you learn real English through real stories and walk away with something interesting to tell your colleagues. First, I'll break down the story, then explain the phrasal verbs with examples, y también les voy a dar una breve explicación en español para que todo quede más claro. So, what are circular transactions? And why do they have so many analysts worried? Pretty much a lot of revenue and investment in AI right now comes from the same few companies: OpenAI, Nvidia, AMD, and Oracle, all investing in and buying from each other. For example, Nvidia just invested $100 billion in OpenAI to build massive data centers. But here's the twist: OpenAI will spend that same money buying Nvidia's chips to run these data centers. In other words, Nvidia is kind of propping up its own success. But for the record, OpenAI isn't forced to or obligated to purchase from Nvidia in this case. That's just what they're choosing to do. Then there's AMD. OpenAI agreed to shell out tens of billions of dollars for AMD chips as well. And in return, it gets a stake in the company. Now let's add Oracle to the mix, which is spending billions on servers filled with Nvidia hardware. And now you can see you've kind of got a money loop where everyone is funding everyone else. It all looks amazing on paper: record profits, massive growth, trillion-dollar valuations. But critics warn the system relies on just a handful of companies keeping the cash flowing. If one of them slips, this AI boom could start to look like a house of cards. So is it a virtuous cycle or just a bubble waiting to burst? Only time will tell. Let's move on to the vocab. I'll explain what they mean, give you a couple examples, explain it in Spanish, and at the end, I'll ask a question. Try to answer this question out loud or in your head so you can practice using it right away. First, we have to prop up. This means to support something and keep it from falling, often artificially. For example, Nvidia is propping up its own success by investing in OpenAI, which then spends that money on Nvidia chips. Government subsidies helped prop up the airline industry during the pandemic. En español es como apoyar o sostener artificialmente. Por ejemplo, el gobierno intentó sostener la economía con subsidios. And a question: what's something in your industry that's being propped up artificially? Next, we have shell out. This means to spend a lot of money, especially reluctantly. For example, OpenAI agreed to shell out tens of billions of dollars for AMD chips. We had to shell out thousands of dollars to update our software. En español es como desembolsar o gastar una gran cantidad. Por ejemplo, la empresa tuvo que desembolsar millones de dólares para modernizar sus equipos. And the question: what's something expensive you had to shell out for recently? For me, it was a new phone. On paper, this is when something looks good in theory, but in reality, it might be different. For example, on paper, the AI industry looks unstoppable: trillions in value and non-stop growth. On paper, the merger seemed perfect, but in reality, it caused massive layoffs. En español es como en teoría o sobre el papel. Por ejemplo, en teoría, el plan funcionaba, pero en la práctica fue un desastre. And the question: can you think of a plan or idea that looked great on paper, but failed in real life? Next, we have rely on. This means to depend on someone or something for support or success. For example, the AI market relies on just a few companies. If one fails, the rest could follow. Our company relies on word-of-mouth marketing more than traditional advertising. En español es depender de o confiar en. Por ejemplo, el proyecto depende de la financiación externa. And the question, what do you rely on most in your daily work? People, tools, or luck? Finally, we have house of cards. This is a situation or system that looks strong but is actually fragile and could collapse easily. For example, analysts warn the AI boom could be a house of cards built on circular investments. The company's success turned out to be a house of cards when the audits came in. En español es como castillo de naipes, algo muy frágil. Por ejemplo, el modelo de negocio resultó ser un castillo de naipes. And the question, have you ever seen a project or company that looked solid but turned out to be a house of cards? So to wrap up, the AI industry may look unstoppable on paper, but when you see how much it relies on the same few companies constantly shelling out billions to prop each other up, it starts to feel more like a house of cards than a solid foundation. Maybe it's a virtuous cycle, or maybe it's a bubble. Either way, it's a fascinating moment to watch and a perfect story for learning English. Gracias por escuchar. I'm Grant with Phrasal Verb News. Come back next time for more stories, more idioms, and more English. Thank you.